This is a video about the core rules of the Soulbound Age of Sigmar role-playing game, how to roll the dice, how does it work. Good morrow, this is 60 Goblins in one brush with a video about how the dice rolls work in the core rules of the Soulbound Age of Sigmar role-playing game. Yesterday I made and published a video about our first adventure, and now the second part is how the dice rolls work. They really did manage to make the rules in a way that is as close as possible to the tabletop strategy game we know and love. So you only need 6-sided dice. So you can use the dice you always use, or you use the Roll20 platform if you want to play online. I'll talk about that more later in this video. So the normal dice roll is a 4-1, which means with one 6-sided die you have to roll a 4 up, 4, 5 or 6. Usually 4, 5, 6 is a success and 1, 2, 3 is a failure. Now if the test is a little bit harder, it can be a 5 up, or if it's easier, a 3 up. For example, the Maw Crusher flew overhead and I pretended to be a tree. So I got an advantage. I got a 3 up on my stealth throw, and the Maw Crusher got a disadvantage. He had to roll a 5 up on his awareness. Awareness and stealth, they are skills. So you usually have a skill of 0 or 1 or 2, and then you add your attribute. For example, awareness is a mind attribute, so you add your mind score. Or stealth is a body attribute, so you add your body score. The Maw Crusher has a very high body, but a low mind attribute, which was good for me. Well, I have both a good mind and good body attribute, so for me it was good. I could use my body, which is 4. 4 plus stealth, I have 1, is 5, so I can roll 5 dice. So in case both the Maw Crusher and I roll a success, he rolls a 5 for example, and I roll a 3, we both have a success. But since I have more dice, if I have more successes, then I am still invisible. The Game Master can make rolls harder by saying you need more than one success. For example, a 4-2 would be 2 dice with a 4 up, or a 5-3 would be 3 dice with a 5 up. A 6 can be counted as a special success and has to be counted sometimes depending on the skill or the talent. Now to the fighting, that is probably what you want to know. First of all, you compare your offensive skill with your defense. For example, my offense in melee is good, and my offense in missile weapons, in shooting my bow, is average. And my defense is good. So if I hit someone with my scythe, whose defense is also good, I have to roll a 4 up. 4 up is the usual thing, so if both are equally good, then I have to roll a 4 up to hit him or her. While if my melee skill is good and the opponent's defense is average, then I can hit him on a 3+. Or if his defense was great, then I can only hit him at a 5+. You see the little chart there in the middle. So, how many dice do I roll? I have body of 4. Fighting is also a body skill. And then I have weapon skill 1 and focus 1. So weapon skill 1 plus body 4 is 5. So I roll with 5 dice. And let's say I can hit the enemy on a 4+. And let's say I roll 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the 4, 5 and 6 are successes anyway. And the 6, because I have a scythe, can do extra damage to any bystanders. The 2 is a failure, and the 3 is also a failure, but I can use my focus. I have 1 focus on weapon skill. I can use the focus on one action per battle round to raise one dice up. So I could change my 3 successes into 4 successes. Then the damage I cause is 1 plus success. So if I have 4 successes, my damage is 5, 1 plus 4. Most enemies' armor will be 1 or 0 or 2. Let's say the armor of the enemy is 1. My damage is 5, minus 1 is 4. So I cause him 4 wounds, so to say. But this I will not subtract from the wounds, but from the toughness. So most enemies have 3 or 4 toughness. So this would already be enough to chop them to death. So with 4 toughness, I would have killed him. Yeah, 5 damage minus 1 armor is 4. He has 4 toughness, he's dead. Unless he has wounds. Most enemies or most weaker enemies don't have any wounds. They basically only have 1 wound, and this is spent when the toughness is on 0. If he has wounds, like I, for example, I have 4 wounds, then we have to count if this is a light, medium or serious damage, and then wounds are subtracted. And if the wounds are on 0 as well, then as a hero you have to roll if you die or not, and if you are Stormcast and you die, then you get reforged. As a currency, instead of gold or silver, you use aqua giranis, the water from the realm of life. And if you drink 10 drops of this water, then you can recover your toughness. If your toughness goes up again, then you don't get any more wounds, because running around with wounds is not so good. As we all know, it has disadvantages. You can get bracketed and whatnot. And if you have metal, usually you have 1 metal at least, then you can do 2 actions in 1 round. You can, for example, hit 2 opponents or cast 2 spells, which is very much fun. This is really, that changes the pace of the whole game. You can even move a little bit a short distance without that being an action. You can choose as a game master if drinking aqua giranis counts as an action or not. We think that it is more realistic that it counts as an action. So you could drink a vial of aqua giranis and still hit 1 enemy. If you have more than 1 metal, then you can really do superhero things like acrobatics during the fight and so on. You need a high soul for metal. And then there are the talents. I have 2 talents, for example, 3 talents, which are quite nice for the Konoth Hunter. One is Ancestral Memories, which means every day I can choose 1 skill that is elevated by 1 the whole day long. For example, weapon skill or so. On this day, I'm a better fighter. On the next day, I'm more stealthy, and so on. Then I have the Bulwark skill, which means when I'm fighting against more than 1 enemy, my defense goes up by 1. Not my armor, but my defense, which is great, because then I'm more difficult to hit. Then my defense would go up from good to great. And the third one is my Quiverling. He always gives me the arrows that I can shoot. And he gathers the arrows that I have spent, and he can hold my bow and so on. So to recapitulate, the system is very close to the tabletop game, and it's very simple and still complicated enough so that a realistic fight is possible. A very good hero character in Age of Sigmar would have several attacks and a higher damage. And maybe even some rend. Here, the damage and the rend, they are together. But you also have several attacks. Basically the dice pool for your weapon skill plus your body. So you roll with 4 or 5 or 6 dice to hit the enemy. That is the same logic. Of course, a hero in Age of Sigmar doesn't have 6 attacks, but he's so good or so fast that the way this is reflected in the rules is that he has several attacks. So more of your 2 hits and 2 wounds will come through. Same here. And then we have this chart, offense versus defense, which is very similar to the old fantasy strategy Warhammer game, where you had these charts where you could compare to hit and to wound and so on. Strength against toughness. And then you have your armor. 0, 1, 2, or maybe even 3. Which is just subtracted from the damage you roll. And the damage is dependent on how many successes you roll. And that way on how many dice you rolled in the first place. And then the damage that goes through that the armor can't hold off is subtracted from the toughness. And then if there's some left after that, if the toughness is on 0, you start counting wounds, and if the enemy has 0 wounds, then he's dead. And lastly, I want to say something about Roll20. So they were very fast to create a Soulbound platform. So if you want to play with your friends online because you have to stay at home or because they are living too far away to play live together, you can do that. You cannot upload your documents, your character sheets yet. That will probably come later. But you can roll. You can even create 3D dice there that you can really throw, which is more fun than just to press a button. And you can also upload pictures and so on and move characters around. Quite nice. There's also an interface, audio or video like Skype or Zoom, that you could use, but we usually use Skype for that parallelly. Skype is more reliable for that. So if you go to advanced dice rolls, you can choose which dice you use, 6, 4, 12, 10, 20, 100 and so on. And then what you have to roll, if you have a 4 up, will be a success and so on. Right hand side, it will count your successes for every player to see. So that is really well done. So if there are any questions about how to roll the dice, you can write to me. Also, if you have experience so far in the game, write it down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and see you very soon.